Some of the hardest battles aren't fought in public. They happen quietly, inside your own mind. No audience, no applause, just pressure. Doubt that doesn't announce itself, fear that lingers, frustration that wears you down over time. These are the battles that shape your life, not because others see them, but because you live with them every day. Stoicism was built for this, not to escape struggle, but to master the mind that meets it. Today, we're going to break down how to build an unshakable mindset, one strong enough to hold steady no matter what life throws at you. This isn't motivation, it's mental discipline. Welcome to Nexus Mind. What Stoicism really teaches. Stoicism is often misunderstood. People think it's about suppressing emotion, about pretending pain doesn't exist, about enduring life in silence. That's not what it teaches. Stoicism is about mastery, not the mastery of other people, not the mastery of circumstances, but the mastery of yourself in the middle of chaos. It doesn't promise you an easy life. It prepares you for a difficult one. Stoic philosophy teaches that struggle is not an interruption to life. It is life, and every challenge carries the potential to strengthen the mind and refine the spirit. This is not about merely surviving hardship. It's about using hardship as training. Every obstacle becomes a stepping stone. Every setback becomes feedback. Every moment of pressure becomes an opportunity to build inner stability. The Stoics understood something most people miss. True power does not come from controlling the external world. It comes from controlling the inner one. You may not choose what happens to you, but you always choose how you meet it. And when your thoughts are disciplined, when your perception is sharpened, when your response is deliberate, chaos loses its grip. This is the foundation of an unshakable mindset. Not optimism, not denial, but clear, grounded control over how you think. And that is what we begin building, one thought at a time. Commitment to growth. Nothing in your life changes until you make a decision that doesn't depend on comfort, not a burst of motivation, not a temporary surge of emotion, a decision, a quiet internal commitment to take responsibility for how you think, how you interpret what happens to you, and how you respond under pressure. This is where growth actually begins. Not when circumstances improve, not when life becomes fair, but when you decide that your inner world will no longer be left undisciplined. Stoicism begins with this agreement, an agreement to stop outsourcing control, to people, to situations, to moods, an agreement to stop waiting for the right conditions and start developing the right mindset. This is not about positivity, it's about clarity. It's about choosing to observe your thoughts instead of being dragged by them, to pause before reacting, to respond with intention instead of instinct. Growth demands this level of commitment because without it, nothing sticks. Insight without discipline fades, knowledge without application dissolves, and intention without consistency turns into self-deception. Stoicism does not ask you to feel strong. It asks you to act with strength even when you don't feel it. This is where many people stop, because commitment means effort when there is no reward yet. It means patience without applause, progress without reassurance. But this is also the exact point where real transformation begins, when you decide that your thoughts will no longer run unchecked, when you choose reflection over reaction, when you accept that growth is not dramatic, it is disciplined. This commitment is internal, No one needs to see it. No one needs to approve it. It's a standard you hold yourself to. From this point forward, you stop asking life to be easier and start training yourself to be steadier. That decision, more than any circumstance, is what sets everything else in motion, building the mental fortress. Once perception is disciplined, something essential begins to take shape: stability. This is where the mental fortress is built, not in moments of ease, not when life cooperates, but under pressure, when your thinking is tested. Most people believe strength appears when confidence is high and circumstances are favorable. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Strength is forged when clarity holds while everything else feels uncertain. A mental fortress is not emotional coldness. It is not indifference. It is inner order. The ability to remain composed while emotions rise, to think clearly while pressure tries to narrow your vision. Life will not stop testing you. Plans will fail. People will disappoint you. Delays will frustrate you. Loss will arrive unannounced. The question is not whether these moments will come. The question is what happens inside you when they do. The fortress is built each time difficulty no longer invades unchecked. This begins with disciplined attention. You stop letting every problem occupy your entire mind. You stop feeding every emotion with immediate reaction. Instead, you contain. You examine the challenge. You separate what requires action from what only demands endurance. Every obstacle becomes training. Pressure teaches patience. Resistance teaches control. Uncertainty teaches steadiness. Nothing is wasted when it is met correctly. When difficulty is treated as an enemy, it weakens you. When it is treated as training, it strengthens you. This is how the fortress grows, not dramatically, but consistently. Each pause instead of panic adds structure. Each calm decision under stress adds reinforcement. Each moment where you choose clarity over impulse adds another layer of protection. Over time, something shifts. The same situations that once overwhelmed you now meet resistance. Not because they disappeared, but because you no longer collapse inward. You stop feeling exposed. You stop feeling internally scattered. You become grounded. This steadiness is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up as composure, as restraint, as the ability to remain present when others unravel. The Stoics believed this was true power, not the power to dominate others, but the power to govern yourself. Because when your inner world is fortified, external chaos loses its authority. The storm may continue, but it no longer dictates your direction. That is the mental fortress. And once it begins to form, life no longer feels like something happening to you. It becomes something you are prepared to meet, with clarity, with discipline, and with control. If you only master one Stoic skill, make it this: awareness before reaction. There is a moment most people live past without noticing, a moment so small it feels invisible, but it decides everything. It sits between what happens and what you do next, between stimulus and response. Most people hand that moment away. They react the instant emotion rises. They speak while anger is still hot. They make decisions while fear is still loud. They move while frustration is still controlling the steering wheel. Stoicism trains you to see what others miss, because awareness is the beginning of self-mastery. Before you can control your response, you must first recognize the internal shift, the tightness in the chest, the heat in the jaw, the pressure behind the eyes, the sudden urge to defend, attack, explain, prove, or escape. That is the moment. If you miss it, you react. If you catch it, you choose. This is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming conscious. Awareness does not deny emotion. It refuses to be governed by it. You notice anger without letting it speak for you. You notice fear without letting it decide for you. You notice frustration without surrendering your behavior to it. That pause, that single breath, is not weakness. It is discipline. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by events, but by the judgments they form about events. Awareness is what exposes the judgment, because the event enters your life and immediately the mind begins translating it. This is disrespect. This is failure. This is unfair. This is dangerous. This means something about me. That translation triggers emotion. Emotion triggers impulse. Impulse triggers reaction. Stoicism interrupts that chain at the first link, not by force, by awareness. You ask yourself quietly, what am I really reacting to? Is it the situation or the meaning I assign to it? That question slows the mind. It separates fact from interpretation. It separates reality from narrative. And suddenly, you have space. Space to decide how you want to respond. Space to act from values. Space to choose the version of yourself that shows up in this moment. This is where freedom actually lives, not in controlling life, but in controlling your engagement with life. Over time, this practice reshapes you. You become less reactive, not because you feel less, but because you are no longer controlled by what you feel. You become harder to provoke, harder to manipulate, harder to pull off center, because you stop living at the mercy of first impulses. Calm replaces urgency, clarity replaces noise, deliberate action replaces emotional reflex. This is Stoic strength, not loud, not aggressive, not performative, just disciplined awareness, repeated until it becomes your default. And once awareness comes first, reaction stops being automatic. You regain command. Failure, feedback, and growth. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people see it as an end point, a signal to stop, proof that they are not capable. Stoicism sees it differently. Failure is not a conclusion. It is information. Clear, often uncomfortable information about what does not work, what needs adjustment, and what still requires discipline. The moment failure occurs, the mind rushes to assign meaning. I wasn't good enough. I should have known better. This proves I don't have what it takes. But those thoughts are not truth. They are emotion searching for certainty. The Stoic approach is calmer. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? The Stoic asks, what does this reveal? Every failure exposes something, a weakness in preparation, a flaw in execution, a gap in patience, a lack of clarity. And exposure is not humiliation, it is instruction. Growth cannot happen where everything is hidden. This is why failure, when examined properly, accelerates progress. It removes illusion. It strips away false confidence. It forces honesty. The Stoics did not romanticize failure, but they did not fear it either. They understood that wisdom is earned through correction. You attempt, you fail, you adjust, you return stronger. This cycle is not evidence of inadequacy. It is the process of mastery. Most people abandon the process too early. They confuse discomfort with defeat. They mistake friction for a warning to stop. Stoicism teaches patience here. Failure is not telling you to retreat. It is telling you to refine. And when you stop treating failure as a personal indictment, it loses its emotional charge. It becomes neutral, useful, directional. You stop collapsing inward. You stop doubting your worth. Instead, you extract the lesson and continue. This is where growth separates those who endure from those who evolve. Because the people who build lasting strength are not the ones who avoid failure. They are the ones who listen to it without letting it define them. Failure becomes feedback. Feedback becomes clarity. Clarity becomes momentum. And momentum, when sustained, turns effort into progress. This is how growth actually happens. Not through perfection, but through disciplined correction. Control what you can. There is a limit to what you can control in life, and most suffering begins when you ignore that limit. You cannot control other people's actions. You cannot control outcomes. You cannot control timing, luck, or circumstance. Trying to do so only creates frustration. Stoicism begins by drawing a clear line. On one side, what is outside your control. On the other, what is always within it. Your thoughts, your judgments, your responses, your actions. This distinction changes everything, because the moment you stop fighting what you cannot command, you recover energy. And that energy can finally be directed toward what actually belongs to you. Epictetus expressed this with precision. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Confusing the two is the source of most anxiety. When life becomes difficult, the untrained mind fixates on what it cannot change. It replays scenarios, it imagines outcomes, it argues with reality. The Stoic mind does something else. It asks a single stabilizing question: what is within my control right now? That question cuts through chaos. You may not control the situation, but you control your conduct within it. You may not control the result, but you control the effort you apply. You may not control how others behave, but you control the standard you hold yourself to. This focus restores agency. You stop feeling helpless because you stop demanding power where none exists. Instead, you concentrate on precision. You act where action is possible. You endure where endurance is required. You accept what must be accepted without surrendering your values. This is not passivity, it is discipline. By narrowing your attention to what you can govern, you become calmer under pressure. Not because problems disappear, but because you are no longer scattered. Your energy becomes focused, your mind becomes ordered, your actions become deliberate. Over time, this practice builds quiet strength. You stop reacting emotionally to things beyond your reach. You stop wasting mental energy on imagined control. You become reliable to yourself. And that reliability, that inner consistency, is the foundation of resilience. Stoicism does not promise control over life. It promises control over yourself. And once that is secured, life loses much of its power to disturb you. Because even when the world is unstable, you are not. Daily mental training. Mental strength is not built in moments of crisis. It is built quietly, daily, long before pressure arrives. Most people wait until life becomes difficult to think about resilience. Stoicism does the opposite. It treats the mind like a discipline that must be trained consistently, not occasionally. Just as the body weakens without regular effort, the mind loses clarity without deliberate practice. The Stoics understood this. They did not rely on motivation. They relied on routine. Daily reflection was essential. At the start of the day, they prepared the mind. They ask themselves what challenges might arise, what frustrations might test patience, what situations might provoke emotion, not to create anxiety, but to reduce surprise, because what is anticipated is easier to manage. This practice builds readiness. You meet difficulty already composed instead of scrambling for control. Mindfulness plays a similar role, not as escape, not as relaxation, but as awareness. You learn to observe your thoughts as they appear, without immediately reacting to them. You notice patterns, triggers, habits of thinking that lead to unnecessary tension. This observation weakens automatic behavior. You stop being dragged by the first impulse and start choosing deliberate responses. Journaling reinforces this discipline. Writing forces clarity. It exposes contradictions. It reveals emotional blind spots. It turns vague discomfort into something concrete and manageable. The Stoics used writing not to vent, but to correct, to examine their actions, to refine judgment, to improve tomorrow based on today's awareness. Mental training also includes what you allow into your mind. Just as physical training requires resistance, mental training requires challenge. You do not grow by consuming only comfort. You grow by engaging ideas that sharpen thinking and demand reflection. This is not about constant intensity. It is about consistency. Small, disciplined practices repeated daily reshape the mind over time. At first, progress feels subtle. You react a little less. You pause a little longer. You recover a little faster. But these changes accumulate. And one day, you notice something important. Situations that once overwhelmed you no longer do. Not because life became easier, but because your mind became steadier. This is the result of daily mental training, not dramatic transformation, but reliable strength. And once this discipline becomes routine, resilience stops being something you chase. It becomes how you live. Progress over perfection. Perfectionism feels disciplined, but in practice, it is paralysis. It convinces you that action must wait until conditions are ideal, until confidence is absolute, until every variable is controlled. Stoicism exposes this illusion. Perfection is not a standard to reach. It is a delay mechanism. It keeps people thinking when they should be moving. Most progress in life is not clean. It is uneven. It includes mistakes, misjudgments, and revisions. The Stoics understood this. They did not aim for flawless execution. They aimed for alignment with reason and improvement through action. Progress matters more than precision, because growth only happens after movement begins. When you wait to feel ready, you often never begin. Perfectionism disguises fear as high standards. Fear of being judged, fear of being wrong, fear of exposing inexperience. Stoicism cuts through this. Action clarifies what thinking cannot. You act. You observe the result. You adjust. This cycle builds competence. Waiting for perfection builds nothing. Progress does not demand confidence. It creates it. Each imperfect step forward reduces uncertainty. Each attempt, successful or not, provides information. And information is more valuable than imagined certainty. Stoicism teaches acceptance of imperfection not as weakness, but as reality. Mistakes are not proof of failure. They are proof of engagement. You cannot refine what you never attempt. This does not mean lowering standards. It means releasing the fantasy that standards are met before effort. Improvement comes after exposure, not before it. When you choose progress over perfection, you stop negotiating with fear. You begin acting from principle instead of hesitation. And something shifts. Momentum replaces overthinking. Learning replaces self-criticism. Direction replaces doubt. The Stoic path is not flawless movement. It is consistent correction. You do what you can, with what you have, from where you are, and then you refine. This approach builds resilience because it removes the false pressure to get everything right the first time. You become willing to learn publicly, to fail without collapse, to improve without self-attack. That willingness compounds. Perfection demands stasis. Progress demands courage. Stoicism chooses progress. And over time, progress done consistently outperforms perfection that never begins. Final reflection and closing arc. The discipline that outlasts circumstances. Everything you've heard comes down to one truth. Life will not become predictable. People will not become easier. Challenges will not wait for your permission. But you are not required to meet chaos unprepared. Stoicism was never about controlling the world. It was about refusing to let the world control you. When you discipline your perception, strengthen your response, and align your actions with principle, you stop being pulled apart by circumstance. You become steady, not because life softened, but because you did not break. An unshakable mindset is not built in theory. It is built in daily choices, in the pause before reacting, in the courage to move despite fear, in the discipline to act without perfection, in the decision to learn instead of resent, in the resolve to live by virtue, even when no one is watching. This is not about becoming invincible. It is about becoming reliable to yourself. Because when everything external is uncertain, the one thing that must remain stable is your inner world. And that stability, earned through discipline, becomes your advantage. If you commit to this path, you won't need constant motivation. You won't depend on ideal conditions. You won't collapse at the first sign of resistance. You will think clearly, act deliberately, and stand firm when pressure arrives. That is the Stoic way, and this is Nexus Mind, where calm becomes power, clarity becomes control, and discipline becomes freedom. If this message resonated with you, stay on this path. The work continues.